Evening, everyone, and maybe to Stephen now, it's almost tomorrow already. It's already kind of Tuesday for you. Thank you for accepting to have this session with us, and I and to everyone who is already in, thank you for waiting for me to start the session. We'll get a lot more people shortly. Today's session is on running GitHub Actions Offline, Debug CI CD workflows locally. And as you can see already here with us, Steve is the presenter. And just to read a bit about his bio, he's someone who is very active in the PyCon community. He's very well known in that space. He's a backend software engineer. He's also a Microsoft MVP, and he's for over 5 years he's been leading projects and very active in the open source community. He's also the founder of Django Cameroon and Python Cameroon communities. I'm going to quickly hand over to him so that he gains back as many minutes as he needs to walk us through his session. So, Steve, over to you while I do out the reminder to pull back others in. So I'll stop sharing. Do you want to take the share?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me go
Share.
off camera.
Okay. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we see your screen.
All right. Thank you. So once again, good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be able to have this conversation with you all today. It's kind of very late on my end. It's currently I don't know if I'm still late or early, but it's 1 a.m. Uh, so yeah, I will quickly just start up and we'll try to speed as much as possible. So a few things about me. I'm actually a software engineer at the base level, Microsoft MVP. Then I've done a couple of things also regarding community work. So for us to actually go really with the flow of the stuff, I have my friend here. He might not really, he might not speak to a lot of people, but um, this is literally a fictional character. I decided to call him Mark. I'm sorry if there's a Mark on the call at the moment. We'll just handle things the way they are. So, Mark actually gets up at 3 a.m. and his special duty that woke him up because of some particular error about action cache returning 503. And Mark has never seen that error in his life. So the fix under normal circumstances is supposed to take him 20 minutes once to understand the problem. And it's going to take him like 3 hours to deploy and maybe have everything to production again. And this is not really an issue at the level of Mark because Mark is really good at what he does, like he's excellent at his job, by the way. So I don't know if anyone here has ever been Mark. Can anyone raise their hands? If you have no Mark, then it's fine. We'll reach there soon. Okay, so your CI/CD should not be a black box. There are a lot of people most of the times are creating CI/CD pipelines as a black box. That means they don't really actually understand what is happening inside. They are not trying to get the real thing that is happening regarding the pipeline virtualization, how the operating system are actually being configured. They know that, okay, so far as everything is green, then we are good to go. So there are three things I actually want us to talk about here. How you should be able to set up your GitHub CI/CD pipeline, how you're supposed to be running it locally, and the different tools and patterns that we are also using for this type of scenarios. So there is this quote I always like talking about: in a world of abundance, if any kind of understanding will be the ultimate. the ultimate premium skill. Sometimes it's not always enough about just making things run, but it's also important to understand the concept. Sometimes going back to Blackboard and getting the basic about everything that you're doing is priceless. So, what are GitHub Actions? I know the question were actually, for those that have been using it, it's not stupid, please. Uh, it's always good to ask yourself sometimes some questions. It helps you clarify a lot of things. Basically, you automate your build, test, and deploy the pipelines. You can freestyle the way you want. So, how do GitHub Actions work? I've actually summarized here the 8 steps. You write inside a particular directory, and you actually have a trigger. The trigger can vary. It can be on push, it can be on tag, it can be on schedule, it can be on different tags. I will invite all of you to maybe explore the GitHub documentation on it. The documentation is always very important. That's the best reference that you can get. Don't be checking on AI or be relying on AI and everything. It's always good to put yourself in the loop and get the right information from the right sources. Now, uh, we have now a runner which is basically a fresh virtual machine, and we always have it inside the GitHub action using a particular image tag. And we also have the steps. Then after the step, now we have the usable action, we have jobs, we have the logs and the artifacts. Then very important to know when the GitHub actions is done running, everything um, is being discarded. I had a friend one time that actually was suggesting that if we're actually having a free virtual machine on GitHub, when our CI/CD pipeline is running, why don't we just deploy our project on it? If you don't know, those pipelines actually being paid for it. Like there is a particular amount tagged to it, and obviously, as time is going on, you will exhaust your quota. Yes, GitHub is also very paid. I mean, it's a paid platform and it has plans as every platform for pro and other subscription plans. Okay, so all right. So this is the flow or the way GitHub Actions actually work. As I said, we have a trigger, we have the jobs, and in the jobs, we actually have the steps. Then the runner, we will have two types of runners. We mostly have the Windows and the Linux. All other images are derived from it. Those are existing images there. We are not talking here about custom images because that one is another part of it. Now, how do we run GitHub Actions locally? To run GitHub Actions locally, you actually need to have a clue about what is Arc, which is basically an open source project which helps spin Docker containers and mimic GitHub runners' behavior so that you can easily get like instant feedback about the status of whatever is happening on your code if you're actually trying to deploy online. And you get the appropriate result. So installing Arc, obviously you can get the command directly from the documentation. You can just Google it, Arc installation or Arc GitHub installation. Then you get the exact command of it, and you also have access to the repository. Maybe you can also drop a contribution. It's always good to contribute to a precise projects. Okay, now for the lazy ones, for those that are actually always avoiding the CLI, there is the Arc um, GitHub extension that you can obviously have on your VS Code. And this is the extension here, which is also open source, so you can obviously go and contribute and add up your own few things inside. Now, how does Arc actually work locally? Um, for those that can remember, the only thing that have actually changed here is the engine that we are having. So in this case in particular, we're actually using the Docker engine so we can be able to uh, virtualize everything and have our app running on our PC. Now, here are actually some flags that nobody most of the time they use when it comes to art. And they will just like always they will just spend time skipping it over and over again. You have the reuse, you have the buying, you have the job names to run a particular job, not running like a whole GitHub file. Then you have an input that it actually does a dispatch, and you also have a secret file. You can have many secret files, by the way. The same way you go and configure GitHub secret, you can also configure them locally and be using them. Now, this is how the GitHub Actions images they work locally. Now, we actually limited to maximum 24.04. So you can go to Docker Hub and you actually get access to the different images on the Docker Hub account of Cat the Hacker. Then you can always do this type of map just in case something doesn't correspond or an image doesn't correspond, then you will just be redirected to an alternative um, of it. Now, some key files that people also omit. The git ignore, which is very important, is when you're using Arc locally, you always have to add these few files. And yeah, and this is the structure also of the secret. So the secret is still a key value file similar to an env file. Now, enough about fairy tales. Arc actually has some limitations. Um, so Arc cannot link a token. The GitHub token permission also doesn't work on Arc. Then the action cache might like the cache backend always gets stuck most of the times. You cannot use Mac OS. You cannot use Mac OS on Arc. You only use Ubuntu. So in case you have Mac OS, then you obviously have to do this type of map as well, so that it can fall to a Linux base. Since Linux and Unix are almost compatible, then it's fine to go. Then nested virtualization. Containers are not actually VMs. What happens on computers is you use like Hyper-V on your computer. That's mostly Docker uses when you're actually installing things on your PC. Just a quick question. Who has ever installed Docker on a computer and Docker says it can't run on that computer despite the fact that you have installed it? Most like at first glance, first reason most of the times is mostly around or is centered around virtualization. Um, if it's not enabled on the computer, then you can't be able to use Docker. And it's not obviously all computers that come along with it. So when next time you're going to purchase a computer, try to also get details about the Hyper-V virtualization at that level. So roughly 80% of the mistake that can happen on a CI/CD can be caught by Arc, but obviously the rest you always need to go back to GitHub Action, or you will need to rely on GitHub Action. Now, how does AI affect this? I included this slide because a lot of people always ask the impact of AI in a particular field and everything. Personally, I've done a wrapper around Arc. I'll share the repo. I'll share the repo later, so we can actually have a look at it. It's basically like code code that inspect and checks it in. Hello? Okay. It's basically code code that inspect and check whatever problem that you had at the beginning. Now, demo, this is actually the link to the repo. I can copy it and send it. A second. So it is obviously not something big, but it's just for rappers, so some people can understand better how the activity works. Yeah, okay. I forgot the already know. All right, so this is the repo. I don't know, can you guys see my VS Code, please? Can anyone see my VS Code? Hello?
Oh, yes, it's visible. I thought I muted myself. Sorry. Yes, we all see your VS
Okay.
Code.
Someone said I should zoom. All right. Um, so the way we always have to structure any repo that actually has to be doing on GitHub, and that should be good for collaboration. I always like having this issue template. Um, and so that in such a way that when someone tries to create an issue, it doesn't just come out rough, but it will come out just with these two particular types. If you try to go and create a template, then you will see, if you try to go and create an issue, sorry, you will see what will happen. Um, then you actually have the workflows. Remember, I talked about a particular path where you're supposed to be installing all your all your GitHub actions inside. Where we have a CI, we have a deploy local, we have a deploy YAML, we have this other part that just say hello user, and we also have a pull request template. Now, one great thing that you should always know whenever you're trying to be understanding something.
Steve, are you still there?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, all right.
I'm
No
there.
worries.
Please, so as I was saying, whenever you're actually trying to have a clue about what a particular project does, then it's always better to be using the help command and be reading out what is supposed to be doing. Uh, this is actually like the best doc that you can also have. And in case you're in the haze, you just want to quickly grasp through, actually understand what is happening, then you can also use like things like grep. Uh, can also use things like Grep and have maybe something like job. I've had the particular flags that you can be able to be using or the job ID that you're also trying to be running on your end. So that being said, for instance here, I will try to run a particular job like the grid job. So this is basically what has happened. He actually coming here and getting the GitHub secrets that are set on my local directory and passing it in the job. And I'm running the job from the terminal. I'm not sure I will not be using the extension for this time around, but I can also like this is the extension, the local extension. You can also add up the secrets here. you can turn on the secrets and just decide to switch it to whatever you actually willing to be getting. Uh, yeah. So back to explaining our project structure. Here we are having the secrets. Um, and in the secrets, I'm actually having like a lot of things. Uh, I had to create a virtualized VPS also at like locally just to test if everything is connecting as well. And these are the details that I was choosing to connect to. Uh, which is obviously something I keep at the moment. So we have secrets, we have the VAS. So similar to GitHub Actions, we have the secrets, we have the variables, and you can actually decide to be using it how you want. Like for instance, here, one particular thing we should understand with variables is that variables can be changed, variable can be visible. Secrets, you can only view it at once. And if you're trying to update it, then you just have to submit a new value at that particular position. So that was the bracket. All right. So we have the VAS, as I was saying. Uh, yeah. Then we also have the arc. Remember at the beginning I told you people about arc setup. This one uh, is the .arc, which basically represent the configuration that I'll be using for arc. I've decided to install arc here globally on my computer. Uh, if I come here, for instance, and I say which arc, it actually shows the location which doesn't correspond to this one. So I've done it and I actually set it in my global environment variables in my path, sorry, so that it can be able to be working smoothly. And in this particular file, that's where I'm actually configuring what can be my secrets and everything. But alternatively, at every time I'm actually running the add command, I can also decide to just proceed and be using it how can I put it? Like to just proceed and be using it with the whole flag structure. Okay, right. So the way you can also use as I was saying, you can also have something like ArcGD here, which is basically the wrapper that I've built on Arc. And since people have really gotten lazy and everything, but sometimes it might be helpful that when you're having an issue, then you want to be working there. You have an assistant that can easily step in for you and just help you quickly on that as well. So yeah, all my jobs are actually running. If I okay, yeah, it's actually trying to deploy, but since these credentials are wrong, then it won't work. It's a similar behavior like what we usually use to deploy applications on GitHub or from GitHub, where you have an IP address, you have a username, you have a password or maybe a secret key. Then you use a few GitHub actions. Maybe you can use one from Apple Boy, for those that have been working with for those that actually been working with deployment on VPS, then you can use maybe something like the Apple Boy and just quickly configure it. Then you will obviously notice that everything will be working smoothly. But in this case, since everything was killed, then ArcBG is actually noticing that we had an error. Then it's asking Claude to summarize of the problem or to actually find out the problem. And root cause, and this is obviously the root cause. No such file directory, deploy job fail, container options, output, both failure limitation, to cache, missing VPS connectivity. Yeah, the VPS is not more running on my computer, so that is it. I don't know if so far there are any questions because there is not much going to go through. Okay.
Maybe just to ask,
Okay.
I know that the Act Buddy, like you mentioned, it's a way to give us a starting template, right? Did I get
Yep,
that correctly?
exactly.
So, okay, so we eventually start with it, and then we put our app or whatever it is normally that would have deployed on GitHub, deployed via GitHub Actions. So if you could just, I know you explained at the start, but it felt like it was, it felt like it was quite a breeze. If you could step us through what typically I would be changing, what has to be there for me to enjoy these local deployments. And I know which you did that, but now to also emphasize what typically would be something that I'm bringing in, what I could safely delete and bring in. I have an idea that they have folders and some folders, but just in case, uh, for those of us that also felt that part went quickly, it might just help us to fully understand that these are the ones that absolutely we must retain, that and the ones that we can always replace with our own specific application.
Okay. That's fine. So, just for clarification, let me go to um, the repo again or the source code. ArcBG is it can serve you as a data template, and but that's not the main the main use of it. The main use is basically for you to understand how Arc works and play around with the different cases and scenario that I've actually set up on it. Do you get now?
Okay. Yes, we're following.
Yeah. So that is it. And as I was saying, obviously you will need, so let's say for instance if you want to move this to another project, this type of things, then you obviously remove everything that is proprietary to this project. You remove the tests, like all this whole part. Okay, the virtual environment obviously is not even found on GitHub. Then you also have to remove the UV log, the pipe project the make file, those details, which are proprietary to this project. But what really has to be staying are the markdown files and also this vast example, so you can understand how to be able to set up all these details. And I still add again, in case someone maybe has difficulties in using the Act terminal, if you want maybe something more visual, then you can be using the GitHub Actions, and that's just it. Like it automatically detects all the jobs. You can choose like a specific job. You can also come to settings and use maybe some particular secret variables, and just have also your runners working as well. Yeah. Okay. So silencing through. So running GitHub Actions obviously locally is not that much of a big deal. The different ways to access a VM, yes, by password and also by SSH key. Yeah, and how not to sleep during my job, obviously. Uh, and of course, Mark is getting better at what he is doing. So you all can feel free to ask your questions.
Sorry. So, hi everyone. So I guess this is now where you begin to, and luckily you've given us a lot of time because I have many questions. For me, I've been looking at how to apply this at in some of things I manage, especially things that I run myself that are local, and it means I can, like you mentioned, cut down on cost and I'm not needing to work with someone else. Also see under the hood a lot of what is happening. So I have questions, but I will let the house start with their questions. Anyone here who has questions? Any questions you would like? You notice I've set up my camera properly. Anyone with questions for Steve? Okay, so let me see. How can we? So let me even start from the beginning. Look, I see your question, but I just want to be sure that I've not missed anybody else's question. Is anyone able to hear it? I think that one was related to hearing. Can we? Okay, so Alexander had asked the question: Can Act obtain permissions from an external REST API, similarly to GitHub?
Right. I can give a little bit of context for Steve, what this question is about. It's a reaction on Steve, on your slide where you said Act is not a good choice when GitHub Action is supposed to use OIDC for obtaining a token to the external service. But like in my experience, this is the majority of operations that we do with the GitHub. Say GitHub Action does something with the cloud setup. In my case, and this is related specifically to this community, we have Fabric environment, Microsoft Fabric, with the REST API. So if, for example, we utilize GitHub Actions, as I frequently do, to perform operations in Fabric against the REST API, I would need a token. So usually it's done by requesting a token from Microsoft Entra using a step in GitHub. We use the secrets obviously for the client ID and the secret, and we request a token. So can that work in Act?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Alexander. So the fact that Arc is running locally, it doesn't mean that it doesn't connect to online services. For instance, some organizations decide not to depend on GitHub secrets for the organization secrets. Uh, Sometimes it might be because of trust, sometimes it might be because of the weight of the secrets. They might turn to solutions like Vault, things like HashiCorp Vault or Bitwarden. And in these particular scenarios, what mostly happens is that you just introduce a step in your GitHub Actions workflow, and it gets directly the value from the external side. So what Arc cannot do is that it can't really get access to um, GitHub, like the GitHub tokens itself. For instance, the GitHub token by default, collects um, it collects the information of the person that is actually running the job and provides authorizations to it, depending on whatever access the person is having on that repo. So yes, it's actually possible. You're muted, please.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your answer. That was my internal gut feeling as well, because I mean, if I can run, for example, AZ login locally, then I should be able to run exactly the same command on my local running Docker container. Right. Thank you.
Okay,
Exactly.
thanks. And for those asking about recording, I'm already posting where you would see the recording. I'll also post our YouTube link. So I move on to Locke's question. How can we get started with zero experience? Any suggestions?
Okay, so first thing, this talk was not really for zero. It was not targeted to an audience with zero experience. That's one. Because to be able to run GitHub Actions locally, you need to understand what GitHub Actions are as a whole. Like, you can only understand what a solution is if you've gone through that particular pin or if your story correlates to it. For this question, for someone that has no experience with it, I will actually suggest to go through. I think there are a few tutorials that GitHub themselves they actually made on it, and some free courses on Microsoft Student Learn. So you can obviously, or I mean Microsoft Learn. So you can obviously go there and have a clue about what GitHub Actions are. Before referring back to this one now, maybe we will have now more context about what's going on.
Okay, thanks. And about the questions again about YouTube channel, I've pasted that in the chat. Sorry, my camera is blocking the chat, so that's why so okay, and then I can sneak in some of my questions while we wait for more questions. Uh, so, Steve, can you maybe give us one example of where, because I have some, but I know the ones that it's better we hear from you more, but give example of where, besides just, oh, I want to work on the plane or I want to work remotely off of the grid of the internet, where, this has been a very huge value, even though we had access to the GitHub Actions and all. I know you've hinted about pricing, you've hinted about maybe like iterating and doing a few things, but if you could just give some examples for you that are a bit more personal to why this was a big deal for you to have set up in a particular scenario and the value that it gave you.
Okay. So I don't know if it might be the same context, but because the communities are actually quite different. Uh, I'm actually someone that has been staying in Africa for a very long amount of time. And yeah, most of the time we are having issues with network connectivity. That's the first thing that obviously pushes me to act, because I just wanted sometimes to be testing my things locally. That was even when I wasn't that much working with AI a lot of years ago. Like that reliability wasn't really, there, but now you see like everything has to be put in the flow, people be talking about AI and everything. So that was the first reason. Uh, as I was talking about the connectivity. Then secondly, it was to avoid having problems with my manager. That was at the beginning. So by the time I started deploying uh, applications on GitHub, you see, it's actually fun when you're running everything, but sometimes things might go wrong. So one time you can say it has gone wrong or it's a mistake twice, but when it reaches 8 times or 10 times, then that one you obviously have no explanation. And the best way to do it is that you keep your failures for yourself, and everything should be running on your PC. So those are a few contexts that I actually had to use uh, app in particular. Then for people that sometimes get stranded, I don't know, maybe on long journey flights, maybe 4, 5 hours, 8 hours. I know how sometimes some of us in tech might be doing their work and we are actually so happy about it until it literally becomes a distraction, like your job becomes your hobby. Like that's the only thing you can decide to know. You're even on a plane, instead of sleeping, you move your laptop and everything. And the internet charges on aircrafts are actually really expensive. Sometimes it can go up to $50 um just for that small amount of time that you're actually spending on the flight. So that's another scenario that you can actually um you pull out everything, like you pull all the necessary containers that you need at the beginning, so that by the time you're running out, you not need access to the internet. And you don't obviously have your own fun. And when you land wherever there's internet, you're pushing something that you're actually sure that, okay, this one will be the right one.
Mm, great. That this is like I when you were explaining about, you make mistakes, want to it's easy to explain in terms of, your deployment had some errors, and then it gets to eight. It becomes trickier and it makes one look inept. I have had a situation like that. On the only luck I had is, well, they knew that we were migrating from a so it was for data engineering pipeline, which luckily to it's the same structure, a bit like what you have for the app that you had shared. So we I needed to do something that was not, so they had libraries that was to take care of something. And then I needed to do an action that was not yet, the library was not built for. So I needed to kind of add additional functionality. And then I needed to inject some variables and mostly variables actually, secret at first, but I found out that variables were just enough for what I needed because there were not any sensitive
Mhm.
data. And I needed to inject it through the Docker, and the I was not getting it right. All the Lining up all the actions properly took me maybe like 20 iterations. And if somebody was looking through the the GitHub action history and the deployment history, I'm sure they'll be worried that, is this guy not going to blow up some other things? It seems like he doesn't even know what he's trying to do. So even at that
And
point, I was
that's it.
trying. Yeah, I was even thinking, is there a way I can even just do this thing locally and just because sometimes I'll be afraid to, I'll be overthinking the deployment. I'll be, wanting to do some kind of debugging in my own head before initiating the deployment, because I know if it failed, it would be like the 14th, 15th time it is failing in a row. So this is, I'm like, yeah, I think this is a session that would allow me to see that that alternative exists. I'm going to see how to exploit. I'm completely new to Act, so that's why, you notice I asked a question about, are there things that must be there? And any other questions? And while we wait for more questions, I know we have to let you go once it's the time, but I'm also selfish. I want to squeeze out as much juice as much juice as we can while we are still within the time we were able to negotiate with you. So it's about your journey. We ask every presenter we ask them two questions. I'm going to ask you in sequence. So the first question is how did you get to where you are right now? I know most of us in the call are not software engineers. Some are dabbled into software engineering, but now major on data engineering or some, more data heavy side of the software engineering stack. But the truth is, we are all usually sitting in the same the same department, and the same similar kinds of workflows apply to everyone. So your journey is something that I'm sure some people will find some inspiration from. And if you can share, without trying to customize it to us, fully how your journey to where you are now started, how you even became an MVP, how you had to um, go as far as not just using these tools, but contributing to tools and being active in the open source community, PyCon, different regions. Share your story. We would like to hear from, as far back as you started.
Yeah. Sorry. First of all, sorry for not turning on my camera.
No
My eyes are
worries.
not good looking at the moment.
We understand the time. I think for you should be, is it 1 a.m. ish or 2 a.m. ish now?
Yeah, yeah, it's almost 2 a.m. at the moment.
No worries.
Okay, so I can generalize everything regarding my journey as community. I am a full product of communities in Cameroon, in Africa, and in the world, and that is where I've actually learned every single bit of the thing I know, and that's what made me who I am today. Uh, I wasn't supposed to be doing engineering. My dream was to become a medical doctor after my secondary school education. Uh, but facing some realities of the country, I had to go to the university because I wanted to study how to use office tools. That's Microsoft, Excel. That's literally what brought me. And the first day I entered in class, there was really one really experienced lecturer. He started talking about algorithms, and that's where I fell in love. And fast forward to today, it's been 8 years since I've actually been writing code and also changing careers. Since you said there are actually people from data engineering background here, I would just say you people might not be at the last career, and they should really feel free to switch at any point in time, depending on the demand on the market. The way I got into tech was through graphic design, and each skills I've been gathering over time has been helpful to me. Let me explain. So, from graphic design to front end and back end, and then to back end, then to DevOps and cloud. Now, the skills I actually gathered from graphic design is helping me build architectures to be like architectural diagram on tools like draw.io, Equalix. Like when I'm actually doing it, you will see I'll always be checking padding, margins, and be checking like a lot of stuff around alignments. And that's just it. So that's just it, like a big summary about my whole journey. But it's been the community throughout.
Great. And do you want to hint about some of your work in the open source and PyCon? I know it's not all the time we get people who talk from the core programming side. And for us now in data engineering, and to be frank, the way uh, BI started as like self-service BI, and now everybody's expecting one to be like a BI engineer, not a BI analyst. I think data engineering is becoming a space where eventually people will expect you to be AI and data engineering together. Like they expect you to do the AI engineering part. So, and we all know that Python is becoming the dominant language for AI engineering, and pretty much most companies are wanting Python first tools. They want code first. They want Python first. tool. So I wanted to maybe share some insights from that angle that can help people kind of see how deep that community is and what people already do, what activities that exist there that you can plug into. I was in PyCon last year, PyCon USA, and I've never been at a conference where it felt like I went to school for 1.5 weeks because it was very long. There were sessions after the conference, and it was classes
Uh,
from 8 a.m. to was it like even 8 p.m. Some people stayed till 9 p.m. I was like, this is intense. So please share about the PyCon and open source community.
okay, as I was saying, I'm actually a product of the community. Python was the third programming language I landed on. I started with JavaScript and Java, then as I stumbled on Python, I just decided to hang on it. What pushed me to Python was basically the noise around it, attention. We are actually in an era where uh, people always go or tend to go wherever attention goes. So it can be considered like it can be considered like following the crowds by some people, but I'm more like of the type of person I will not follow the crowds with my two legs. I'll be testing with one leg, and I'll obviously be maintaining my brain and trying to analyze the whole situation and be like, oh, this is probably something that I'm supposed to avoid, or maybe I'm supposed to actually get into. But as a whole, I got interested with Python. I started working with Python, and one day I just decided to get into the Python communities. For those who know Django, I started contributing to the framework, to the Django framework. Then that's how I decided to make Django Cameroon. And after that, I actually became what they call a Django individual member. Basically, the people that actually have a word on whatever is supposed to be done or released on Django. And I kept providing my input. I kept sharing whatever insight with the team, attending sessions. Uh, then, after down doing Django, still based on that work, I actually met Manny Young. He's a Ghanaian, and Manny was the one that actually told me, okay, this is Python Africa. He has been here for a couple of years, and I want you to join the team, and that's how I actually joined the team. So today it's been 4 years that I'm actually an organizer of the biggest Python conference in Africa. Uh, and then based on those contributions now, I was being nominated to become a PSF fellow. Those are also people that
Wow.
have a say on what is actually produced on the Python programming language itself. So today I'm also a Python Software Foundation fellow.
Wow. And I think that's the
And
highest beside being the
director,
yeah, I think that's like the highest a non-employee can get to, right? Yes, sir.
yeah, actually.
Wow.
So aside that, then I also got nominated for Microsoft MVP, uh, still in Python and web technologies. And yeah, and despite that, I still contributing to the whole ecosystem. And this year now, after a long wait, we decided to bring PyCon Cameroon to life. So PyCon, like Cameroon, will actually be having its first PyCon, and we like, based on the fact that we know like several people in the community and everything, is really something that is easy for my team and I to be able to make it come to pass. So community is something that I always do during my free time, but is definitely something I'm just passionate and I love doing. Sometimes people ask me, but how do you handle your job and handle the community so consistently and everything? I'll just reply a day has 24 hours. So everybody spend their 24 hours the way they actually want. And it doesn't mean that you should not sleep. Obviously, we know 8 hours of sleep is very important. As it's 2 a.m. now, yeah, I'll probably be getting up at 11 or 10 a.m. my time when I'll be sleeping. Yeah, but as a whole, that's just it, like a very big summary of my own journey.
Thanks. So the last question, I said to, even though the other one felt like that was second, I was not the second. It's what would you advise, in this case, in fact, just think of someone who wants to, do as much as what you have mentioned, wants to be active in the community, wants to be an expert in, something in this software engineering or data engineering world, but someone who is at what I would say ground floor and wants to have a better approach to becoming an expert and to also becoming someone who contributes to the technical community, what would you advise as a very reliable pathway for the person to take, a mindset or an approach, or some tips that you think, if you are starting all over, that's how you will do things?
Okay, the first thing is that you should understand community work is not paid. Don't be expecting a dime from the community, or don't be expecting that they will pay you because of that. It should really be something that you you are happy when you're helping other people. So this also turned out to be a point for the next point. You shouldn't put 100% of your time on the community, because obviously you need a way to be able to get your daily bread, and that's undisputable because the community will not be sorting out your bills. Try to find the right balance between what you like or your profession and whatever you're doing for the community. Most people, whenever they want to actually get into the community, what they do is that they try to make their own community, which is not really obviously a great idea. Sometimes you actually have to observe and look around. If there are some existing communities, you can start first uh, by by applying to speak and making yourself a good public speaker. I personally, despite the fact that I've spoke at, like, I don't know, probably even like 220 conferences, I am still not that good of a public speaker. I just decided to share the way it comes. You can see even when I'm speaking, sometimes it's blocking. It's not network, it's my voice. So that's just it. So you start small. You can maybe start by like if you're speaking engagement, then volunteering. There are always volunteering roles. If you go maybe you people are doing data engineering, and obviously one day you will have to turn to using Python. You can go to the different Python conferences around. I know some few in the US. I don't know that much of it in Toronto and Canada. There are things like Ohio, there's Python in Texas, and there's even like the Django communities, Django in the US and all that. There are bootcamp programs. You can decide just to volunteer, and just sometimes it's just about sharing your opinion. And obviously, I know we all don't have time, but community sometimes just asks like 30 minutes of your time per week. It's not a full-time employment, so we should all understand that. So take it slow and take it easy. And obviously, like everything in life, it's always important to have a mentor by your side.
Okay, thank you. Alex, any last words before we end the session? Alex is the co-organizer.
Right. Well,
Oh,
I always get it sometime at the end of our sessions. Thank you, Michael. Well, as tradition calls for, thank you very much, Steve, for joining this community, and we appreciate your dedication and talking to us at that very inconvenient time for you. But I'm sure that we'll share your enthusiasm, and we understand that when there's a group of dedicated people that are very eager to learn, you can do it in the middle of the night when you are as dedicated as you are, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alexander.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. I think, as you understand, we have to let Steve go sleep so that he doesn't have to wake up 1 a.m. or 12
Or just brew a
noon.
cup of coffee instead.
Bad idea. Very bad idea.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the call now. So, end meeting. Sure.